There it is.
This is System.Debug.
Nailed it.
Love it
Nailed
every
it.
time.
Nailed it.
Did you play that live just now?
Yeah, just now with my air guitar.
I wish you had the guitar there, just doing
They're
things.
over there on the wall.
Yeah, you should
I
have grabbed
thought
one.
about it.
You should have at least air guitared it, like wah, nah, 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 nah.
What do you call it when you? It's not lip syncing. It's fake
Guitar syncing?
guitaring.
It's air guitar.
Air guitar.
But if you have a full guitar,
but you actually have a guitar.
real guitar. Yeah, if you have a real guitar, but you're faking playing the guitar syncing, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
Sure, we'll call it that.
I'm cool with it.
It's flat out lying. Basically, like when I gig with my other band, I just turn my volume all the way down and play so nobody can hear me. That's why we have two good guitar players, and then I'm just there to hold on to something.
All right, so welcome to another episode of System.Debug. We are your hosts, Ryan Headley, RJ,
me,
and me, Brian James.
All right.
Why were you so hesitant to say my name?
Because I couldn't remember your last name. I didn't know if you wanted me to say you're Raymond Hill or just RJ.
No.
You don't want people to know your real name is Raymond?
I don't care. Everybody that I know knows that that's my real name. It's just not the name that I use.
Fair enough.
Go.
All right, so upcoming events. We have Tahoe Dreamin', January 20th through the 21st in South Lake Tahoe.
I'm going.
I unfortunately will not make it, sadly. Wanted to go. I was almost there. Almost made it.
I'm kidding. I'm not going.
You can still register at tahoedreamin.com. They're going to have their keynote speaker is going to be Sarah Franklin. That was posted on their website. And Sarah Franklin is. Oh, that's why you do it. There we go. There we go.
Are you still?
Sarah Franklin is the SVP Developer Relations and GM at Trailhead, General Manager Trailhead at Salesforce. She will be doing the keynote. It's going to be going on from 9 a.m. to 10:15 at Tahoe Dreamin' 2017. Cool. That's right, South Lake Tahoe. So once again,
go ahead.
You can register on their site. I believe registration is still open.
Yes, I believe so. I heard, however, that they are starting to run low on the discounted hotel rooms. So hooray, hooray, hooray.
And at the same time, hooray, hooray, hooray.
Yes, and hooray, hooray, hooray. Very good.
So after that, once again in March, we're going to be having Southeast Dreamin'. That's March 30th through 31st in Atlanta. That you can go to southeastdreamin.com to find out more about. Right now, they're doing a call to speakers as well as looking for sponsors for the event. So
that I will be at.
Yes, I will be there as well.
We'll both be there doing a code consult, probably again, which does not mean that you pay us. Just as a fair warning, this does not mean that you pay us to code for you. You just come with questions, and we help you answer those questions for anyone who's listening, which is nobody. True. Maybe Brian. Maybe Ben Brantley, possibly. He's listening right now. He's like, I know that. I already know that.
Other things that were announced recently, the Trailhead X is also coming up. That's the actual dates have been announced, June 28th through the 29th. Registration is not open yet. However, you can go to developer.salesforce.com/trailheadx and send them your email, and they will alert you when registration is open. That will be.
What is Trailhead X? What's that all about? What's the difference between that and Trailhead?
Okay, well, Trailhead X is the Salesforce Developer Conference. So that's where you're going to meet and greet a whole bunch of really, really awesome developers and MVP developers, as well as some Salesforce execs. Last year they had Lenny Kravitz come and play, which was really, really awesome. They also had Apex and the Limits headline at the keynote, which was really awesome. And anytime you can actually go and see Mark Benioff as well as Parker Harris shake hands on stage, that's epic. That's pretty cool. I thought that was one of the coolest moments of my career here. for conference going, was to actually see both of them on stage at the same time.
Coolest moment in my career so far, just to throw this in there, is that time that Brian James had his name floating over his head in a live stream. So far. I hope it gets cooler than that. I don't know.
Don't encourage him, or he's going to be wearing the pirate hat and all that stuff here soon. I can get.
I don't
Yeah,
actually.
right before we went
figure out how
live,
to
he had
do
this
it.
stupid cat face going on. He had like a drawing over his face.
I couldn't.
Whatever
I don't know
it was.
how to turn it off. I was playing with it anyway. But yeah, so Trailhead is really cool. For those of you who don't know who Parker Harris was, or is rather, he is the co-founder of Salesforce, along with Mark Benioff. He doesn't get as much face time as Mark Benioff, but we appreciate everything he does just as much.
Do we though?
Oh yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, yes we do. I don't know. I can't say that I do. No offense, Parker. Sorry.
Way to go. He is
I don't
never coming
know.
on this
It's
show
Mr.
now.
Harris.
He's like,
You
this
know.
one guy. These other two guys, I love them. He's gonna send you guys like Christmas cards or
Right.
something. He's gonna send me a piece of coal. Be like, burn this.
Maybe we'll get
This is your oven.
Giant
Stupid.
lightning bolts. That'd be pretty cool. Other dates that have been announced. Midwest Dreamin', August 10th through the 11th. That'll be in Chicago, Illinois at the Navy Pier.
It will not be at Navy Pier this year. There is a new location, but I haven't found out where that is yet.
Oh, okay. Well, then scratch that. It will not be at Navy Pier. However, it still will be in Chicago.
Still will be Chicago. Yes.
Okay, cool. So it'll still be in Chicago, and it will be August 10th and the 11th. MidwestDreamin.com. Go there, follow it, find out more information. That's pretty cool. Other announcements, MVP nominations. Make sure you get out there and nominate people in your community who you think deserve to be recognized as valuable players in Salesforce's communities. Okay, so whether that's your user group leader or your mentor or anybody in the community that you feel has inspired you in some way or another, you can go to salesforce.com/MVP/nominations.
Nailed it.
Thanks.
I like that you got stuck on. You're like Salesforce.
Wait, it's coming to me.
Salesforce.com. I think that's it. So real quick, Parker Harris. Going back to this guy, is his Twitter just @Parker Harris? I'm gonna follow this guy. I'm gonna see what's going on with his life. I'm gonna check him out.
If you actually just like search for his name.
Oh yeah. Salesforce.com is on his thing. All right,
You don't
follow.
think Parker Harris has like a hit squad, do you?
I don't think so. No.
Damn.
He's not as
BJ
active
wants
on
me to
Twitter.
die. BJ actively wants me to die.
Parker's not as active on Twitter as Mark is. But yeah, he's definitely got a Twitter handle. I follow.
All right. So back to the nominations. Nominate people.
You can go to salesforce.com/MVP/nominations. And once again, just go ahead, nominate who you think maybe somebody important to you has inspired you in the Salesforce platform to do great things.
Can I nominate myself?
You can, I
I
think.
suppose you could, but
I nominate myself. RJ Hill. What if? Do I need my
You can't
full?
just
Do I need
say
my
it.
government
You have to
name?
fill out the form.
Oh,
You can't just be like, I nominate
know.
myself.
I see the. I put it on the screen so we can see the form.
All right, well, here is the form. You have until January 13th at 5 p.m. PST or 8 p.m. Eastern time to nominate. So please go ahead and do that. That'd be great.
very much.
All right.
Now he's
So
making
what's on?
faces. All right.
Of course he's making. Let's get. What's he doing? What's he doing over here?
Hey, at least we don't have the floating Brian James title anymore. That seems to have.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I'm
Now if
glad
I
that
can
went
just
away.
figure out how to get this stinking thing off my screen. Oh, wicked. All right.
Cool. Next on the list. Is that all the up and comings? Is that what we've got here? MVP nominations? Yeah, I think we're good.
Yep,
there.
that's everything that I'm aware of going on right now. Obviously, feel free to correct me, send us links, and make sure that we understand all the other events that are going on. Let us know when developer user groups are happening in your area so that we can also announce those to make sure attendance happens for you.
I am not smart enough to understand. Well, maybe not smart enough is not the right way to go about saying that. But I'm not as involved as you guys are in the Salesforce thing. So what happens? Like, nomination happens, right? And then what happens? What's the process after nomination? Is it just like anything else? Nomination, people get voted, and then all of a sudden you're in the club, or like what's the process? And then what happens afterwards? Like, do you get a trophy or a swag, or are you just bestowed with this title and then there are things expected of you? I'm serious. I mean, BJ's over here giggling like a schoolgirl, but I'm dead serious. I really don't know. Like, and of course, Ryan, you are a Salesforce MVP, so you know best out of the three of us. Even though BJ's laughing, he's like, I know exactly what happens. Even though he's going that route with it, I would like to know how it really happens. What really goes down.
Well, you are nominated, so that gets you on a list, right? So,
yeah.
And then there is definite review that happens. I don't know how much detail I'm actually allowed to go into to who all's involved in those reviews and such, but there is a review process. And you either make it one round or you don't. In order to be, if you miss one incoming class, you can always be renominated again for the next incoming class, et cetera, like that. So yeah, there is a process. And then, I like to say that, if once you've become an MVP, I don't think that there's anything more expected of you because you're already doing plenty to have become an MVP, right?
You maintain is really what you either maintain or take it up a notch.
Right. I suppose you could look at it that way. It's more of, you just keep doing what you're doing, right? And again, you're not doing it to maintain your MVP status. You're just doing it because we like to do it.
Well, yeah, and that's what gets you there that's what gets you on the nomination list
in the first place. Yeah,
I'm assuming. Yeah, so you get on the nomination list. You start doing your thing, or you keep doing your thing, rather. You go through, there's a review process of some sort, and then they will select 1, 2, 10, 50, or some random number of nominees that move on to the next round, I guess? Or
it's not even really a round. It's just they either say, yeah, this person has, has what it takes to be an MVP. We want them to be in the community, or this person is up and coming. Maybe, they may watch them or, give them somebody to work with if they feel like, hey, we'd really love to have this person become an MVP, but they're just, not as available or something like that. Maybe they work with somebody to help them get that last little bit there or something like that. But
all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. And I think that kind of leads us in, unless anybody else has anything to talk about in relation to
I just wanted to put it out there. I don't actually know the process. This was all news to me too, RJ.
I know, but you're giggling. You're like, RJ doesn't know anything about Salesforce. Oh, what a goon, huh? It was just a typical BJ stance.
That was
uppity.
All right. So
anyway, I think that leads us into kind of the next topic, which is how the heck do you get to be a Salesforce developer at all to begin with? Like, where do you go? Where do you start? What are you doing? Like, how does it work? And so BJ, Ryan, and I were talking about this a little bit here and there, and Ryan and I have gone deeper into this kind of, as far as like, oh, how do I like start branching out on my own and things like that. But anyway, the real first step, I think, to me at least, was getting into Visualforce. Mm-hmm. Anybody else feel the same way, or was it Apex for you guys, or?
Well, for me, I kind of had to attack it from both sides. But I would definitely say that as far as transitioning happens, it's probably best to start with Visualforce. It's a lot easier.
Because you can see the results immediately. It's in your face. You go, You make a Visualforce page, you hit save, it's right there.
Yeah, it's much more immediately gratifying.
Yeah. It also depends on, I guess, the kind of team you're working with, too. If you've got Apex developers on the back end that are creating stuff for you and saying, here's what I have for you, you can call these methods. I suppose it depends on how custom you're looking at. If you're using all just standard controllers and such, then, yeah, it's just straight up Visualforce is fine. But, if somebody like, if you're just on your own, you spun up your first developer org, you may need to create some Apex in order to use that Visualforce page, etc. So
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense because if you're going to do some custom stuff, yeah, you need all the custom backend to plug that custom front end into, of course.
Yeah, And so for me, it actually wasn't Visualforce. For me, it was writing triggers. So I was learning the back end stuff first because, you know, it's always clicks, not code. So I was learning the clicks part, and then I would take that as far as I could. And then I'd be working with my supervisor at the time. And I'd be like, okay, this is what I need to do. And he goes, yeah, you're going to need a trigger for that. So that's when I started writing the triggers and things like that. The advantage I had is I had already been a developer for X number of years. So writing the trigger was easy. It's just, that was just starting to learn the ins and outs of, you know, don't do DML and loops and learning the limits and all that stuff. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so I think we're steering more towards Visualforce though for this topic, right? So I don't want to get too deep into the other side of things. So
well, I just wanted to get everyone's kind of take, because I know that there are different ways into pretty much any kind of language that you're trying to get into. You could, you know, you start spinning up little things here and there. Oh yeah, I want to get into HTML. I want to get into web dev. I want to get into Salesforce dev. I want to get into this. I want to get into that. There's a lot of different ways that you can, there's a lot of different entry points, I should say, for those things. And for this one, I kind of got thrown into it full force. It was all or nothing kind of for me. But I know that other people who are taking their time can probably enter at any of, you know, they can start on the back end if that's where they're comfortable with.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, this what we're talking about here is how to transition yourself or how to position yourself such that you can make the transition and do a nice little pivot from you're in your HTML right now, you're doing your web dev right now, you've got your JavaScript, all that great stuff, and how do you put yourself over into Salesforce? And Visualforce was, of course, the first thing that came up. So, BJ, you want to shed some light on that, or Ryan? Either of you guys want to throw some stuff in there?
Sure.
Before B.
So Salesforce defines Visualforce as Visualforce is the component-based user interface framework for the Force.com platform. The framework includes a tag-based markup language similar to HTML. Tag corresponds to a course of or fine-grained user interface component, such as a section of a page or a field. Visualforce boasts about 100 built-in components and a mechanism whereby developers can create their own components. And that's basically saying that, for the most part, you have a lot of very custom Apex tags that work right alongside HTML in order to build a much more dynamic experience, whether it comes from displaying data, saving data, or interfacing with that data. Visualforce allows you to access the records in your database more streamlined without having to write a whole bunch of extra MVC kind of logic in order to make that happen.
Okay. So the way that I was thrown into this was, here's what you get. Visualforce HTML, Apex, Java, go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, you can actually just put HTML in a Visualforce page and it will work. You can just throw JavaScript into that Visualforce page and that will also just work. You do need a little bit extra on the front end as far as I know, because you got to wrap everything in the Apex tag, right? The page tag, right?
Right, yeah.
So that's one kind of caveat. You got to throw it in that Apex page tag, and then the Apex page tag is going to ask you for a couple different things. What are the requirements? Do you guys know offhand for the Apex page tag, the required attributes, the required properties on there?
There are 0 required properties.
Okay, so you can just do Apex page.
Yeah.
Flat out. Okay, cool.
But the more common ones I would have to say are probably the controller and standard controller. Almost every time I create a Visualforce page, I'm using one or the other. Typically, as you go on, you're going to use more and more Apex in your development. And so you're going to end up using controllers in almost all of your code. However, they're completely not necessary. You can create all sorts of pages without using a single controller or line of Apex code in order to get you there. So it's really versatile like that. You are correct that you can use all sorts of HTML and JavaScript, CSS, and all that kind of stuff in it in order to work with that data. But there's a lot of times where JavaScript just kind of becomes bulky, or your CSS isn't going to look Salesforce-y enough. So you kind of, balance it between
all of the
what you're
times.
gonna use.
If you put all your JavaScript in the same HTML or Visualforce page, I guess I should say, it's gonna get bulky immediately bulky.
Mhm.
If you have more than like
Absolutely.
10 lines of JavaScript, it's just blah. But yeah, all right, that's awesome. I didn't, again, kind of going back at what you said, I've never made a Visualforce page without a controller. So at that point, like that's why I thought there were some required ones. I thought maybe the controller was required. I know I use content type a lot for my pages because I'm always changing it to display JSON and things like that.
Well, and content type's really cool because of the fact that when you're using that content type, beyond just the application / Java XML or whatever, or JavaScript content type, you also have Word and Excel content types, you have PDFs, and that actually really helps when it comes to, say, displaying data and allowing it to be a downloadable format that's then easy to read. I've done it plenty of times where I've created whole Visualforce pages that upon rendering, you can actually download it as a Word document or download it as a styled PDF that's dynamic with the data that you're pushing from certain contracts. So if you're setting up SOWs or you're setting up contracts or anything like that, you can actually have that PDF automatically generated from lead information or any other S object you're looking at. But that gets, once again, into the more advanced side of Visualforce and Apex, so we're not going to really probably tackle that this evening. However, I do have a couple of examples of really simple Visualforce pages that I can share.
All right, you want to pull those up?
Sure.
Demo time. We need
Demo
a book for demo
time.
time. Demo time.
Demo time. We can get a dancing DJ on the screen to like kind of like come across.
He comes out, get a little, put his head on something that's wiggly.
There we go.
Bobblehead DJ. BJ Bobbles.
All right. So we've got a really basic Visualforce page here. As you can see, it's very, very limited amount of code. Okay. Most of this is actually all pulling off of the exact same query that I've got in my Apex controller, and I did that just to display data. And what that controller looks like is just simply a public get set for a list of accounts where I'm creating a list, selecting the name, the annual revenue, and the owner ID from the account. So nothing seriously fancy at all or complicated in the Apex script. And I'm just using it so that I can display a couple of examples on our front end page in our Visualforce. Some of the things you'll notice here, instead of divs, I'm actually using Apex page blocks, as well as Apex page block sections. And one of the neat factors about this is that when you add things like tab styling, the page blocks and the page block sections will take on the appearance of the native Salesforce tab styling for that S object. So if it's an account or a contact, you can put the tab style up here so that your Visualforce page is actually styled just like that, and the colors match and icons match. It makes it a lot easier.
Everything will match essentially what your current interface looks like is what the interface of this will look like, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly, and that makes it easier already because you're eliminating a whole set of CSS.
Yeah, now you don't have to style it. Now you just leave it as is, and you throw that in the bucket with, somebody else is going to have to style that because it goes with our current styling.
Now we do have a couple of different examples here of DHTML. That's dynamic HTML. A lot of times you'd be using jQuery or JavaScript in order to handle this. And that's basically just propagating extra divs or table rows or anything like that that you would put onto the page from JavaScript that would just be dynamically generated based on either user input or records from your database. In our instance, all we have to do is use a Apex page block table or an Apex repeat in order to achieve that. Now, you can see that with an Apex repeat, we're able to do a much cleaner dynamic HTML. However, we're not going to have any styling on that. The page block table will go ahead and style itself in order to match the tab style of the rest of the page. So that might be something that you're considering if you're using something like Bootstrap and you want to style your own tables to look much more unique or
So you're
modern.
going to have to come in there and build out something custom in order to get the new styling, the bootstrap styling, correct?
Exactly. You'd have to have a static resource reference or a reference to the actual resource out on Google hosted
Gotcha.
libraries or whatever.
Okay.
But that is an option. It's faster than DHTML. You're not writing a whole bunch of extra JavaScript. All you're doing is repeating a list from your JavaScript or from your Apex controller. One of the other really cool things is that using an Apex list view, we're able to generate an entire list of accounts based off of what your typical account page, landing page, looks like with all of its views. And all these I'm going to show you here. So right here, we actually have that first page block table that I had demoed. You'll notice that one of the really cool things about using the owner ID as one of the columns that we've presented is it automatically created a link to my user for it. And so I can
very nice. Because a lot of people are going to want that.
Exactly. And I don't have to, I didn't do any extra coding for it or anything like that. I just simply asked that my account owner ID gets entered as a column. And it was the same for the annual revenue as well as the account name. And one of the other really cool features that you'll notice is it did all of the formatting on this currency for me. So commas, dollar symbols based on my currency choice. And the Apex output field will automatically change all that. So you're not messing with UTC style time zones or timestamps. You're not dealing with just large strings of numbers that aren't formatted. It makes it a lot easier to read.
Yeah.
However,
so what you're saying is that Salesforce does all the generic-y kind of changes for you, all the generic-y formatty stuff for you.
Exactly. However, when we used, this is our second one here, using our Apex repeat, where I wasn't using output fields. Instead, I was just putting the information in there to loop through it. And you'll notice none of those are formatted. These are not links. This is not converted to be a readable format for currency. So that's something else that you're going to need to pay attention to when you're making those decisions.
And that's just the repeat.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
The list views, which I put on there, you can see that with just this one single line of code, list views type equals account. All of this gets generated on your page. And I can now swap to any of these different views that I've got set up in my standard Salesforce page, and all that kind of stuff, which is really, neat that it makes it that easy. One single line of code, and I'm already putting all this information out there. And you can do enhanced lists where you're only displaying a single view, making it non-editable so that you can actually display a certain filtered amount of information. Once again, no Apex code required, which is really neat about Visualforce. And then the last thing I have here is for input. All of that stuff obviously was for output. However, input, you also don't need any Apex for if you want to do something simple. By having a standard controller on our page of account, I'm able to actually access that information in order to save it. So because I have a standard controller of account, I can type in, RJ Hill as an account name with an annual revenue of a lot more than he deserves.
That's some serious money right there.
That's some Bill Gates money.
And you'll see that I've actually populated them right here. RJ Hill.
There I am. Yay. Where's my money? Where's my money?
You can see, obviously I haven't changed my time zone, but there's his revenue, and all of that's like real quick stuff. That's saving it. Even the save button is handled with native Visualforce pages. I'm not even doing anything that's like crazy.
All right. So for anyone who's not familiar with the platform at all, can we just go to the traditional accounts page so we can show them the comparison between the one that you had that uses the accounts page format and the actual accounts page, or the accounts display page, the accounts view page, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to classic here.
Because I know this is a thing, but I'm not sure how many other people would know that that's a thing,
Right.
Man, you got so many friggin' accounts, dude.
Yeah, so while he's pulling that up too, I mean, he's kind of alluding to it like with the list views. One of the things we do all the time is you'll get a client that says, well, we want to just add this one extra piece of functionality on the page. And they want it to look just like the regular accounts page, but there'll be something else that they want on there that would require you to then bump into Visualforce to do it. You can do like, what is it? I think it's Apex detail view. And then you can literally bring over the view of any one of the standard objects or even custom objects, the view page of that, and embed that right into Visualforce with that one line of code, and then go ahead and add your extra stuff underneath that if you wanted to. It's all pretty cool. I used to do that a lot, and one of the things that tripped me up when I was first starting was the fact that when you do it that way, you can still control where the fields appear on the page layout through the regular standard page layout editor when you bring it over that way. So
that's actually what I was going to ask too. I didn't know if the layout editor that you use for the standard page layout would affect this, but now that you said it, yeah. So that's
it does when you bring it over as just the detail view, like that one line. I think I can't even remember because I rarely use it anymore. But like Apex.
Are you talking about like a single view, just like a single view, not a whole?
Correct. I'm not talking about your list views.
Oh, so the list view is not affected.
I'm not talking about the list view in this case. I'm literally, when you build a Visualforce page, you can build a page block section or not a page block section, but you can add an Apex detail. I thought it was detail view. I can't remember the name of it off. And you give it the name of the object, and it will go and grab everything that user is able to see right from the regular page layout and bring it in the Visualforce page. And then you can add your extra stuff below that if you wanted to.
Gotcha.
Say they
Once
had
again,
some other
no Apex.
Yeah, exactly. And with no Apex, it pulls it over. I ran across that issue one time before where there was stuff I needed to add and move around on the page layout, and I went into the Visualforce page and I'm like, I don't even see those fields. And then I realized they were using that detail view, and then I said, oh, so I wonder if I can really control that from the standard page layout. So sure enough, I could move them around there.
There it was.
Yeah. So that was something that tripped me up in the beginning.
Something else that's kind of cool about Visualforce is components. Instead of you having to build out, say, templates using jQuery UI or other things where you've got all of this information stored at the bottom of your page, but it's only stored there. Salesforce allows us to actually have Apex or Visualforce components that we can actually just tack on. So for instance, in our original page I was just showing you, down here, this is just the system.debug component demo. All right, and that is simply a component that consists of an iframe, and that iframe is displaying a Visualforce. But this right here is that whole component. Okay, so I was able to program that off to one side, but now I could actually add this component onto any Visualforce page that I have in my org in order to quickly generate an account.
And so you can have it on anything. You can have it essentially. Let's say you have a page where you go and you look at some leads, right? And you don't necessarily want to generate an account from the lead, but maybe there's something else on that lead that you want to throw into an account. Like maybe there's, I don't know, some other junk in there, and you're like, oh, I can build an account off of this, but it's not the full lead. You can throw that on the leads page, and you can say, all right, well, now anytime I'm on a lead, I can look and I can say, oh, I need to do an account or some such thing from that. Plug in your Visualforce component and then just go. And now it's there on all of them.
Right, and that's as simple as even just creating another Visualforce page with a standard controller for lead, putting this component in there, and then you can just create a new section on a page layout and drop that Visualforce page directly onto the leads page layout, and now you could automatically be generating an account from any lead that you go to by typing in relevant information and clicking save. So
nice.
A component can really, really help build faster software for you later on.
Yeah, I mean, another thing you could do, you could build a maps component inside of that and map just about it. Map anything. Map just about anything on any of the pages, right? Or, what we actually did for a client in the past was we overwrote the history area. So we threw it all on a Visualforce page, but then we gave them also related object history. So we had opportunity in certain objects that needed to be related to that opportunity, and they wanted to track the history, a very high level history of those items. We could throw it on that page. And then so in our hosting Visualforce page, we said, our main object is opportunity. Our related list should be X, Y, and Z, and process it. So if we wanted to, we could have done the same thing with account and said, oh, they also want to track stuff like this at the account level now. Okay, now we're going to pass the account object in and all of its opportunities, etc. And you could kind of nest the component that way. So that would, on any page, you could have that special component that we wrote render its related object history if you wanted to. So it was cool. Components I like, which is why I like Lightning, even though this is not what this is about, because it's the same kind of thought process.
But it's the same kind of thought process as a Visualforce page at the base level, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good way to tie it in. And if you wanted to, I would imagine you probably get started building components rather than Visualforce pages if you really wanted to. That's another entry. That's just another entry point to Salesforce development.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the problem is that there are too many entry points. There's no lack of entry points to Salesforce. You can start with the triggers. I think that's what David Todd said in his talk that he gave for our user group, right, BJ? That he started with triggers too. Yeah, I know Ryan said that he started with triggers, but I think David Todd also started with triggers. So there's like I said, tons of different entry points. So now what happens? My question is, what happens with the people who are very, very, very into the HTML? They're like smothered in HTML, smothered in CSS, smothered in JavaScript. They've got all that knowledge. It's all rattling around their brains. And now they want to step into this, right? So they've got their HTML pages. They can copy paste it over inside of an Apex page tag. They can start trimming it up, start doing their like repeats. What are some things that cross over, I guess is my question. What are some things that cross over between the HTML and the Visualforce? Are there any kind of crossovers, or is it all just this points to that kind of situation? Because like in Apex, like the repeat is just a JavaScript for loop with some HTML inside of it. Right. If we're talking about transitions, right? But is there anything that carries over that you're going to keep the same? Like, let's just say, for instance, your all the stuff in the head, right? All your CSS links and stuff like that. Do those carry over, or how would you go about doing something like that? How would you go about? Let's just start there. How would you go about linking a CSS file?
Well, once again, you actually have two different options in order to do that. You can link directly to a Salesforce site like you typically would, or not a Salesforce site, rather, I apologize, but a CSS script like you typically would using a link tag. Or you could use, or not a link tag, I'm sorry, style sheet. However, you could also use like static an Apex static resource, right? And access it that way. And it's the same with your JavaScript. And as well as that, like as far as your head goes and everything that you're putting up there, you can still type CSS in full blocks and manipulate the page with it. You can still do your JavaScript. There are some slight annoyances, such as when you're accessing IDs, because of the way that Salesforce kind of builds the IDs out. A lot of times it looks more as they
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All the IDs on the objects themselves, all the IDs on the tags are auto-generated, so they look incredibly janky. They look all kinds of crazy.
Exactly.
There's like EF0 dot, this, that, the other thing. There's all kinds of dashes and dots and crazy stuff in there. So those do look crazy, and accessing those, I've had some issues with that in the past, actually.
You actually have to write a regular expression using JavaScript in order to access that. And a lot of times what you're going to do is kind of use a regular expression to find out if the very end element of that ID equals the ID that you put on that page element.
Yes.
If so, then you can actually access it. And that can be kind of finagly and wonky at times too, which is, it's annoying. However, some of the cool things about JavaScript is that you can actually load JSON strings from your Apex class into Visualforce via your JavaScript tag. And so if you're loading a whole thing of JSON, obviously JavaScript's going to manipulate that information a lot easier than Salesforce is, or Visualforce is. So that would be one of the reasons why you might use JavaScript. Also, with CSS3, you have a whole bunch of dynamic CSS stuff that Salesforce won't do for you necessarily natively. So you might use CSS for some styling attributes, and you might also use JavaScript in order to be able to sort your table if you're not using certain other functionalities.
Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense too, because when you're touching these things, you're going to want to do everything kind of natively. You're not going to take out an Apex method. I mean, you don't get me wrong, this can be done, but you're not going to use, for the most part, an Apex method and call it with JavaScript. You can do it, but you're not going to for the most part. You know what I'm talking about? The
with remoting?
Yeah, the virtual remote or whatever it's called. Remote.
Right. However, you will use JavaScript inside of your action functions, because action functions on Visualforce actually are JavaScript functions that you are then using to call Apex classes. And a lot of times you can use your JavaScript to call that action function. Since it's not displayed on the screen, it's just hidden text in the background. You can use your JavaScript that if somebody inputs something here, it's going to call an action function, which will then pass a specific parameter to your Apex class. So there are certain things that make it a lot easier to pass and send and receive information to and from Apex.
Yeah, I call Apex methods all the time through JavaScript and action functions and things like that. Yeah,
do you?
Particularly it's for the more dynamic pages. You know, they select this pick list and now you need to show this form or that form or whatever right on that same page, or update some other values that may not be a pick list from your object, right?
I gotcha. It's a pick list from somewhere else. Maybe you've stored it elsewhere. Yeah. Gotcha. Or maybe it's not even dynamic. Maybe the pick list itself isn't dynamic. Maybe you just have that kind of like hard-coded elsewhere float. Okay, I gotcha. I wasn't aware of that. I thought that there was kind of like a streak. Like I knew that you could do it, but the way that it looked from my point of view was like, that's a no-no. You probably shouldn't do that. You should probably use your Apex to get your Apex, use your Visualforce and the way that it's set up to kind of roll through your Apex and grab all the stuff from Apex and pull it over and do something with it that way. But yeah, I've seen the remote stuff before and the actions before. I just never... I thought they were kind of like, you know, secret, like hidden, like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's not hidden. I mean, I know a lot of people that use it. I know that every time I do it, I wrestle with it for a lot longer than I should to get it right. But yeah, I do use it quite a lot. And then I do like the visual remoting too. I mean, or the remoting I think is kind of sweet as well. And if I want to say, when I was first, like when they first started talking about Lightning and how, or not Lightning, maybe it was Lightning Design System. I can't remember. But I was trying pages in strict HTML5 and then using remoting to call back and populate fields there.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
I haven't messed with that in a long time now. I did have a working demo of it, but yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, you could probably do that a number of ways. You could probably do that with like an Ajax call. You could do that with exactly. Yeah, you could do that with a bunch of crazy things.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, and I did it because I could. And we had a client that, you know, they didn't want a lot of that styling and a lot of the stuff that was from Salesforce, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I'm like, you know, if you guys let me do this in HTML5, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot prettier. And
it's going to work out for you. It's going to work out better for you. I got you. All right, so that's pretty cool. That's kind of some information to take in there. So now, since
we provide links to where you can go and find out the different Visualforce components so that you can actually go ahead and test them on your own. Salesforce does have a site or a single page in its developer site in order to, you know, kind of check them all out, run through them, test them. It's neat. It helps. It makes your job a lot easier later when you're trying to figure out what's that one perfect thing, and you go back and reference it. So we'll make sure that we have a link below, as well as our website, which is now up and running, system.debug.com.
I thought you were going to forget what the website was. I thought you were about to get stuck like, the website. I know there's three letters at the beginning. I forget what, W.
So www.system.debug.com. We also have a link on the main page there to our podcast. You can view videos from previous recordings there as well as listen to the audio directly on the site with little bios from each of us as well. Links
and it's
to our blogs.
system.debug, system.debug spelled out. SYSTEMDOTDEBUG. There's no actual dot in the middle.
Right.
It's a really
Just
good call.
FYI.
You can also tune in 2 weeks from tonight, 7:30 EST, 6:30 CST. On
You're not going to mention any other time zones?
No, we can do the math from there.
January 16th. We're going to be talking about the limits class in Apex. Very important for those of you working for ISVs or other companies who are planning to put an app out onto the App Exchange, or huge amounts of data that you're constantly running into lots and lots of errors on. We're going to cover out an overview of the Apex limits class and how you can kind of check to make sure that you're not going to hit those limits, and if you do, maybe some custom exceptions.
So
that's really cool because I've never messed with that, and so I'm even looking forward to that one there. I'm gonna have to do.
Well, you've seen them plenty of times, right?
Huh?
You've hit your SOCWA limit. You've hit your.
Dude, never.
You've never had a CPU
it's
timeout.
impossible to hit a SOCL limit, man. Impossible.
No, I've discovered a number of limits. So yes.
Apex.
And I am a limit personally, but that's
are.
that's a side note. So same as self-promotion.
So that'll be January 16th. Remember to tune in. We'll be going live. If you like the video this evening, make sure you like it. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. If you don't like it,
give us a
click
huge,
the like button. There's no point
massive,
not clicking.
a big old, give us a
don't do
big old
that.
thumbs down
Just
if you didn't like it.
click like.
I mean, that's not fair, man. You know,
Yeah.
gotta hear both sides.
I want to hear
Everything.
both sides.
You gotta hear both sides. If we're trash, tell us we're trash. Let us know. So let's wrap up. We got 13-ish minutes left. Lucky number 13. So let's. What can we talk about to kind of wrap all this together? What kind of ties all the Visualforce stuff together, and what can we give to these people? These one, maybe two people who are listening, tops. What can we give to them that they can kind of use as a springboard into Salesforce development?
As always, Trailhead, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the no-brainer. But I'm not quite sure that's what you're asking.
Well, Trailhead is always a good start, but it's kind of in that same vein where, like, okay, here's Trailhead, here's real life, and then you have there's a little bit in the middle that gets sort of lost. Not necessarily completely lost, but there's always a couple little things that you don't get in the Trailhead that you still need in real life. You know, so like, oh, here's a good one. I'm gonna throw this out there because I ran into this when I first started. If you go in and you make a change, if let's say you're fully into this thing, you're building a Visualforce page and you're building the Apex backend and you're going nuts. Pow, 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 pow. You're doing all your stuff. You got all kinds of crazy variables, all kinds of crazy public stuff out there. If you go rename something in your Apex class and then subsequently you rename it in your Visualforce page without saving the Apex class first, it's going to shoot you down. And then if you try to save it in the Apex first, it's going to shoot you down because you just caught yourself in a little loop. So what you have to do is make a new variable with the new name, save your Apex class, go into your Visualforce page, rename it, save that, then go back into your Apex, take the old one out. Always get caught in that. I get caught in that all the time. I still get caught in that all the time. So like,
Get caught in that. That's like a very common thing.
Well, it is, but nobody throws that out there. It's just like, hey, man, this is what's going to happen to you.
How common is that? Because I don't think I've ever had that happen.
You're not renaming enough variables. You're not renaming enough variables. That's the problem here. Everything you write is perfect. That's the MVP
I was just
status.
going to say, my code must be perfect the first time through.
Right.
Or you're okay with your
Absolutely.
variable names. You're not naming things like A.
Yeah. Well, okay, so from my end from my end of things, start simple, right? But I am very explicit. Like if you read my code coming from the Python world, which kind of encourages a bit of being explicit, I'm very verbose and explicit with my variable names and everything. So I won't just say a, if I'm working with an account, I'll say account or maybe ACCT or my account or something like that. Or if I'm introducing a new variable and somebody coming along behind me 5 years from now, they don't want to see what A is. They want to know what it is. So I don't have any problem having longer variable names and things like that. It doesn't bother me to type that over and over again. My code editor puts it in place for me anyway. So yeah, for me, it start simple, be verbose, be explicit, find a simple problem and go and do that and just learn as you go if you have that opportunity. Otherwise, find a mentor that can, kind of push you in the right direction. So,
Well,
What's
getting
it
on
like
the
about
developer
being
forum,
lazy?
the developer forum will always have a lot of answers. And a lot of times if you're Googling the question, typically Stack Exchange, Salesforce's Stack Exchange or Salesforce's developer forum are going to be one of the two end results of Googling.
Yes.
Yeah.
That being said, Ryan, the times that I find myself hung up in that kind of annoying loop is when I'm adding additions to the page. I've decided, oh, okay, and I start writing all of my really wicked Visualforce code, and then all of a sudden I realize, oh, I'm gonna put a variable in the back end called this. And so I put my little merge field or expression field inside of it, and I click save, and it says, oh, that's not a thing in your Apex class. And you go, oh, well, don't worry, I'm gonna go make it a thing. So then you go over to your Apex page and you go try to edit it and create this new variable, like, which is what I believe RJ is kind of getting at, is that then you go to create this variable that hadn't existed before in order to save the Visualforce page. You go to save the Apex class, and now the Apex class is pooping on you because there's code in your Visualforce page that doesn't even make any sense, and you're yelling at it going, I'm trying to make it make sense. You're the jerk who doesn't understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one thing. When I prototype fast. So I'm running through things like public account A get set, public account B gets set. Like I'm doing different things. Maybe I'm comparing accounts, lists of accounts for whatever reason, whatever dumb reason. But I'm throwing things in there. So it is on me. That is my fault. But for people who do prototype real fast just to get something done and then go back through and make changes with like a find and replace and things of that nature, they're going to get caught in this loop like I do constantly.
Gotcha. Yeah, the only time I use like the smaller variable names and things like that, I mean, I'm still back on I'm explicit, is like in the for loops when I'm for account A in accounts, right? Then I'll use those because it's usually within 5 lines and you can look and see what's A. But if I've got this huge class and I'm referring to something called A that I did way up top and now I'm down at the bottom, I don't know what the hell A is anymore. So
I
always try to be more explicit in that way. But yeah.
Definitely shout out to all the people who are explicit all of the time. It's a hard thing to be because of the inherent laziness of developers.
What about character limits? I use short variable names because of character limits.
Are you talking about
that short?
Are you talking about the 80 wide, or are you talking about the system limit? Like you can't have X number of characters in your code or whatever.
System limit. And believe me when I say we have hit it.
I have never even come close.
It is a nightmare when you go to try to create one more Apex class and Salesforce says, nope.
Well, it's even more of a nightmare when you don't realize that those limits exist and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just Salesforce. So obviously you can make more classes whenever the heck you want. And then it fails, and not silently, but it's not as verbose as it needs to be. And you're like, what am I doing wrong here? Why can't I add another thing? Oh man, I can't add more classes. I can't add another line of code. What is happening here? And then you go to that page, that like nice, what do you call it, page where all the limits are on your thing. What is that called? I forget.
Are you talking about the customer profile?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
It's got like all the bars on it and stuff, and it tells you like what percentage. It's like, oh, you've hit 100. It told me one time that I hit 105% of my limit. I was like, How's that even possible that I got over 100? You should have stopped me at 100, man. I forgot what it was. It was something goofy, but it was like, yeah, you hit 105% of your limit. I was like, that's not real. Stop me at 100 next time.
Maybe I've just not been around long enough, but I haven't even run into an org that's even close to that limit yet. We've crazy.
Got, oh man.
And, maybe it happens more in the ISV world where you're actually creating products and stuff. I don't know. I have.
Well, and a lot of times what happens is that you're constantly, to RJ's point, is going, oh, I'm just going to write this really quick page real quick, or this really quick Apex class. And you've got, so many developers that have gone into the main org and have done this for little minor reasons. It's never going to be included in the software. I'm just testing something else.
Right.
And then you often realize that 60% of your code is garbage code.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what use it was at any point.
Where'd it come from? Where's it going? What does it do?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get rid of that later. That doesn't do anything right now. We don't use that anymore. That's deprecated. We don't use it.
That blows me away. One of these days, I'm sure I'll run into it. I'm sure I'll find it. But yeah, I haven't run into that yet. So that's
the issue. Is that we started with very few developers, and then we got real big, real fast.
Right.
And we didn't have the infrastructure to handle that growth. At the moment, we do now. We're doing fabulous now. But at that time, we didn't have the infrastructure, and it was just like, oh man, I got to do this thing over here that does X, Y, Z. I don't have the time to figure out if somebody else created the X, Y, Z thing, And there was not a lot of asking. So now we're telling people in the interviews, we're like, yo, 15 minutes, can't find it, ask us. Like tops 15 minutes, come talk to me.
Well, and that's what my professors told me. He used to harp on it, was that don't spend more than 10 minutes, because when you're working at this level and they're paying, developers wages, every minute freaking costs. And so
if you're going to make a developer's wage?
Well, I'm just saying that if you're, Googling what the average wage is, whatever it is, they're paying you. And if you're spending a half an hour or 45 minutes looking for an answer that somebody already had for you, and you should be 35 minutes farther along in your project than you are, he always made it very, very clear. You need to ask. 10 minutes is a very long time to not know an answer.
Yeah, 10 minutes is nearly infinity.
The trick is having that senior developer not be standoffish when you ask them, right? I've seen that. And that scares people from asking, which, so my call out is to those senior developers that tend to get asked the questions, be nice.
Yeah.
They're asking for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah. They want to do a good job,
They're not
trying
trying
to take work off of your shoulders, man. They want to take a little bit from what you're doing and take it upon themselves. It's going to help you in the long run, Mr. Lone Wolf developer.
I agree.
Alrighty. So we got 2 minutes left. Anything you guys want to talk about?
Make sure to follow us all on Twitter.
Yes.
All of our Twitters are on our webpage, so you can just go to our webpage and check that out. Click all the buttons.
Account. All the buttons.
All the buttons. Every of the buttons.
Yeah. And the main account is twitter.com/system.debug, right?
That's right.
And then we have email address, systemdot.debug@gmail.com.
Yeah, if you want to ask us any questions, shoot us some crazy emails. We will get back to you as fast
pictures
as possible.
of your favorite hats to RJ.
Favorite hats?
Oh, I just want you to get junk mail.
You want me to? I wouldn't be getting the junk mail. You handle the email account.
So,
oh my God, dude,
just like everybody.
Let's wrap this up before I have to make fun of you.
We can fix that with a filter and a forward rule.
Can we fix BJ with a filter and a forward rule? Jeez.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you all, 1.5 people.
Are you going to play us out?
I'm going to play us out. Here we go. Let's do it.
Oh, man, grab a guitar off the wall real quick.
No, I can't because it's too fast and it'll be crunchy
run.
Stuff. Here we go.
This is System.Debug.
Oh,
Can you do a
All
cool
right,
little
everybody.
like hat flippy thing? Do a hat
No,
flippy thing.
I haven't started practicing that yet.